"Can I sit here?" A sick little girl asked the stranger. He turned out to be a widowed CEO millionaire. "Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us begin today's heart-touching story of kindness, healing, and unexpected love. The morning light spilled through the tall glass windows of St. Helena Memorial Hospital, washing the quiet cafeteria in soft gold. The smell of brewed coffee and disinfectant hung in the air. At a corner table sat a man in a dark gray suit, his hands clasped around a cup that had long gone cold. Daniel Hart had been coming here every Friday for 3 years. Always the same table, always the same silence. To the nurses passing by, he was just another visitor. But to those who read the business pages, he was the chief executive officer of Hart Group, the man who had built an empire and then vanished from the social scene after his wife's passing. Today, he looked more like a shadow than a millionaire, his wedding band still on his finger, his eyes fixed on the floor tiles as if searching for something he had lost there years ago. Then came a small voice, fragile but clear, breaking through the quiet. "Excuse me, can I sit here?" Daniel looked up. A little girl stood beside his table, a hospital wristband around her thin arm, her bald head covered by a pink knitted cap. She held a tray with a half sandwich and a cup of milk, both shaking slightly in her tiny hands. For a moment, he could not speak. He just nodded, motioning toward the empty chair. She smiled softly and climbed onto the seat across from him. "Thank you," she said with a politeness that tugged at something deep inside him. "All the other tables are full." He glanced around. There were plenty of empty seats. He said nothing. The girl took a careful sip of her milk, then looked at him with wide, curious eyes. "You look sad," she whispered. "Is someone sick too?" Daniel blinked. The question hit harder than she could have known. "Something like that," he murmured. "My wife used to sit here." The little girl tilted her head. "Maybe she still does, just invisible. My mom says love does not go away, it just changes seats." Her innocence disarmed him. For the first time in years, Daniel smiled, a small, reluctant curve of his lips. "What is your name?" he asked. "Mia," she said proudly. "I am 8. What is yours?" "Daniel." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Daniel." She began to draw on a napkin with a crayon she pulled from her pocket, her tongue peeking out as she focused. When she finished, she turned the napkin toward him. It was a child's sketch of 2 people sitting together at a table, the sun shining through a window. "It is us," she said. "See, you do not look sad anymore." Daniel looked down at the simple drawing, and something inside him shifted, a faint warmth he had not felt since before the accident. "You are a very good artist," he said quietly. Mia grinned. "Maybe you can keep it." "You look like someone who forgets to smile." He hesitated, then folded the napkin carefully and placed it inside his jacket pocket. The steady hum of the cafeteria returned. But to Daniel, it sounded different now, softer, lighter. The monitor beeps from down the hall blended with the rustle of papers and the murmur of distant voices, like the rhythm of a heartbeat coming back to life. He looked at the little girl and said almost to himself, "Maybe this chair is not so empty after all." The golden light of late afternoon filtered through the glass walls of the hospital cafeteria as Daniel Hart sat alone once again at the same table where the little girl had spoken to him earlier that day. Her napkin drawing now rested neatly folded beside his untouched cup of coffee. For hours he had been trying to focus on the stack of reports inside his briefcase, but every time he looked down, he saw the simple crayon sketch of 2 people sharing a table and smiling. It haunted him in a strangely comforting way. He had forgotten how a child's honesty could pierce through layers of grief and armor. He could still hear her voice echoing in his mind, that innocent tone when she said, "Maybe your wife just changed seats." For 3 years, Daniel had lived like a ghost. His wife, Emily, had passed away after a long battle with leukemia, leaving him and their young son in a house filled with silence. His boy, Nathan, now lived with Daniel's sister in Oregon, because Daniel could not bear to let the child see him broken. He had built his company from nothing, But when he lost his wife, success turned meaningless. Every photograph, every melody, every familiar scent of her perfume reopened the wound. He came to this hospital only for routine donations to the oncology ward, believing he was doing something useful with the money that no longer mattered. Yet today, a small bald-headed girl with a smile brighter than sunlight had disrupted that stillness. He could not explain why it mattered. He only knew that for the first time in years, the air around him did not feel heavy. As the evening deepened, he stood, slipped the napkin drawing into his wallet, and left the cafeteria. The following morning, Daniel arrived at the hospital again, but this time it was not for paperwork. Something pulled him back. In the lobby, he spotted a nurse guiding a group of young patients to the rooftop garden, their wheelchairs decorated with colorful balloons. Among them was Mia, her pink knitted cap slightly crooked, her small hands clutching a sketchbook. She noticed him almost immediately. Her face lit up, and she waved so eagerly that her sleeve nearly slipped off her thin arm. "Mr. Daniel," she called. The nurse turned, surprised. Daniel smiled faintly and walked toward them. "Good morning, Mia," he said. "Are you feeling better today?" "A little," she answered. "I am going to draw the sky. Do you want to see?" The nurse nodded politely, introducing herself. "I am Anna, the pediatric nurse assigned to Mia's ward. She talks about you all morning, Mr. Hart." Daniel looked startled. "She does?" "Yes," Anna said with a gentle grin. She said the sad man with the coffee finally smiled. He chuckled softly, feeling the warmth rise in his chest. The rooftop was peaceful, dotted with planters of daisies and lavender. The faint beeping from the monitors attached to some of the children mixed with the sound of wind chimes. Mia sat cross-legged on a blanket, crayons scattered beside her. "What are you drawing this time?" Daniel asked, lowering himself to one knee beside her. "A garden in the clouds," she said. "Mom says when people we love go to heaven, they plant flowers so we can find them again later." Daniel swallowed hard. "That is a beautiful thought. You can draw too," Mia offered, handing him a blue crayon. "I do not think I am very good at it," he replied. "It is okay," she said. "You can just color the sky." He hesitated, then took the crayon. As he colored the corner of her page, his hand brushed against hers, small and warm. For a moment, the ache in his chest eased. Anna watched from a short distance, her eyes soft. She had seen wealthy donors before, men who came to pose for photographs or to ease their guilt with money. But Daniel was different. He did not act like a man seeking attention. He sat on the floor, coloring beside a child who had nothing to offer him but a smile. Later, when Mia grew tired and the other children were wheeled back to their rooms, Daniel helped Anna fold the blanket. "She is strong," he said quietly. "She has been through more than most adults could handle," Anna replied. "Her mother passed away last year, and she has been here ever since. The hospital is her home now." Daniel's expression shifted. "Who pays for her care?" "A private donor," Anna said. "No one knows who exactly. The funds just appear in the hospital account under the name Anonymous Benefactor." Daniel looked away toward the skyline. The city glimmered below, endless and cold. "Whoever it is," he said, "they are doing something good." Anna nodded. "Yes, but sometimes good things are not enough to make up for loneliness." She glanced at him, studying his distant eyes. "You seem to understand that." He offered no answer. He simply handed her the folded blanket and said, "Thank you, Nurse Anna." Then he turned to leave, but Mia called after him, her voice soft but steady. "Mr. Daniel, wait." She ran a few steps toward him, clutching something in her hand. "Here," she said, placing a tiny paper heart in his palm. It was cut unevenly from a page of her sketchbook, colored pink, and scribbled with the words, "Do not be sad." Daniel stared at it for a long second, unable to speak. "I will try," he whispered finally. She smiled, satisfied. "Good. Come back tomorrow. We can finish the sky together." As he walked away, the paper heart pressed in his hand. Daniel realized that for the first time since Emily's death, he wanted to come back to the same place again, not out of duty, but out of something far gentler hope. That night, in his quiet penthouse overlooking the city, Daniel placed the heart beside his wife's photograph. The lights of downtown shimmered below, and for the first time in years, he He whispered good night not to the memory of the woman he lost, but to the little girl who had reminded him that life, somehow, still had color. The next morning, the sky over Street Helena Memorial Hospital was the color of soft pearl, the kind of morning that smelled faintly of rain and coffee. Nurse Anna arrived early, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floors as she made her rounds through the pediatric wing. The quiet hum of machines, the rhythmic beeps of heart monitors, and the occasional cough filled the corridor. When she reached Mia's room, she paused at the doorway. The little girl was sitting cross-legged on her bed, crayons scattered around, a sketchbook open on her lap. On the page, she was drawing a man in a suit standing in a garden of blue flowers. "Good morning, sunshine," Anna said with a smile. Mia looked up, her eyes bright despite the dark circles beneath them. "Good morning, Nurse Anna. Guess what? Mr. Daniels said he would come back today." Anna walked closer and smoothed the blanket. "You really think he will?" Mia nodded with full confidence. "I know he will. He promised we would finish the sky." Anna chuckled softly. "Then we better make sure your room looks nice for when your special guest arrives." Mia giggled. "He is not special. He just looks lonely." Anna felt a pang in her chest. There was something heartbreakingly honest about the way Mia saw the world. To her, people were not rich or poor, powerful or weak. They were simply people who needed kindness. Around noon, Daniel Hart arrived, his polished shoes echoing softly in the hall. The nurses greeted him with respectful nods. His reputation preceded him, though few had seen him smile until now. He carried a small bouquet of daisies and a sketchbook wrapped in brown paper. When he stepped into Mia's room, the little girl gasped. "You came back!" she exclaimed. "You kept your promise!" Daniel smiled, placing the flowers in a small vase near her bed. "I try not to break promises, Miss Mia." She clapped her hands, delighted. "You brought flowers. Did you pick them yourself?" "Not exactly," he said with a faint laugh. "But I thought they might brighten your day." "They already did," she said, sniffing the petals. "They smell like sunshine." Anna watched from the doorway, her clipboard forgotten for a moment. She had seen hundreds of visitors, but this was different. The man who once carried the weight of grief now looked lighter, as though the child's presence had eased something locked deep inside him. Mia patted the edge of her bed. "Come sit. I want to show you my drawing." Daniel sat beside her carefully. On the page was a nearly finished garden scene, filled with clouds and stars. "That is beautiful," he said softly. "But you forgot the sky." "That is for you to finish," she reminded him, handing him the blue crayon again. He took it with mock seriousness. "Then I better not mess it up." Together they colored the sky, their hands occasionally brushing. Every time Daniel looked at her, he saw traces of his own son in her laughter, his late wife's warmth in her courage. When the drawing was done, Mia tore out the page carefully and handed it to him. "You can keep it. Now you have 2 smiles to remember." He folded the paper slowly, his throat tightening. "Thank you, Mia. This means more than you know." "You can say thank you by visiting again tomorrow," she replied matter-of-factly. "Deal," he said, shaking her tiny hand. A few moments later, Anna entered to check Mia's vitals. The little girl chatted non-stop, telling Daniel about her favorite cartoons, her dislike of hospital food, and how she once hid her medicine behind the juice box until the nurse caught her. Daniel laughed for the first time in months, an unguarded, genuine laugh that startled even himself. After the checkup, Anna walked Daniel to the elevator. "You were good with her," she said. "She rarely opens up that quickly." "She reminds me of someone," he said quietly. "My son. Does he live here with you?" "No," Daniel replied, his gaze distant. "He lives with my sister. After my wife passed, I thought it would be easier for him. I was wrong." Anna nodded gently. "Children have a way of forgiving faster than we do. Maybe it is not too late to fix that." Daniel looked at her, her words settling in his mind like seeds finding soil. When he returned to his office later that afternoon, the hum of the city outside his window felt different. He placed Mia's new drawing beside the one she had given him the day before. The colors were imperfect, uneven, but full of life. He could almost hear her voice saying, "You do not look sad anymore." For the first time, Daniel picked up the phone and called his sister. "How is Nathan?" he asked. "He is good," she replied, surprised. He misses you. Daniel hesitated, his eyes resting on the drawing. Tell him I am coming to visit next weekend. That night, as the lights of the city shimmered against the glass, Daniel wrote a check to expand the hospital's art therapy program, naming it the Healing Hands Project. But deep down, he knew it was not the money that mattered. It was the laughter of a brave little girl who had taught him that even after loss, the heart could still find its way back to the light. Meanwhile, in her hospital bed, Mia fell asleep clutching her crayons, dreaming of a sky that was finally complete. In her dream, the sad man with the coffee was smiling, and the clouds were filled with daisies. The rain returned that evening, soft and steady, tapping against the tall windows of Daniel Hart's penthouse. The city glowed beneath the storm, its lights blurred into streaks of gold and gray. Daniel sat at his desk, the room dim except for the amber glow of a single lamp. In front of him lay the two drawings from Mia, the first of the cafeteria table and the second of the blue sky. They were simple, uneven, and priceless. He traced the crayon lines with his fingertips, remembering her laughter, the way she spoke without fear. It had been years since anyone had looked at him without seeing his title, his wealth, or his grief. For the first time, he felt something begin to mend inside him, yet that fragile peace was quickly broken by a framed photograph sitting beside the papers, his wife, Emily, smiling beneath a tree, holding their son Nathan in her arms. The sight still hurt. He missed her every day, missed the way she used to hum in the kitchen or leave small notes on his coffee mug that said things like, "Do not forget to breathe." Grief was a strange thing. It dulled and flared like an old wound that refused to heal. He wondered what Emily would think of Mia, of this tiny force of light that had wandered into his gray world. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the hospital again, this time bringing a box of colored pencils, sketchbooks, and paint sets for the children in the oncology ward. The nurses greeted him warmly, surprised to see the stoic man visiting again. Nurse Anna met him by the reception desk. "You are becoming a regular here," she teased lightly. "Should I add your name to the staff roster?" Daniel smiled. "Maybe you should. I have a lot of vacation days to use." She laughed, then her expression softened. "Mia has been waiting since sunrise. She would not eat breakfast until she asked if you were coming." "Then I better not disappoint her," he said. They walked together to the children's playroom. The walls were covered with paper butterflies and sun drawings, bright spots of color against the sterile white. Mia sat at a table near the window, her pink cap tilted slightly to the side. When she saw Daniel, her face lit up instantly. "You came back again," she cheered. "I brought something for you," Daniel said, setting the art supplies on the table. "I thought you could use more colors for your garden in the clouds," Mia gasped as she opened the box. "There are so many. Look, Nurse Anna, there is even silver and gold." Anna smiled. "You are going to make the prettiest sky in the world." Mia nodded seriously. "The prettiest sky for the bravest people." Daniel helped her spread the paper and choose colors. As she drew, she hummed a little tune, the same way Emily used to. It made Daniel's chest ache in a bittersweet way. "What are you drawing today?" he asked. "You," she said simply, glancing up. "And your family in heaven." Daniel's hand froze. "My family?" "Your wife," she said softly, "and the boy in your wallet picture." Daniel blinked in surprise. He had not realized she had seen it. He carried a small photo of Nathan and Emily in his wallet, one he often looked at when the loneliness became too heavy. "You saw that?" he asked. "Yes," Mia said with a small smile. "You look happy in it. You should smile like that again." Anna looked over, her heart squeezing at the tenderness of the moment. Daniel cleared his throat and nodded. "I will try." Later that afternoon, while Mia rested, Anna invited Daniel to the hospital cafeteria for coffee. The air smelled of cinnamon rolls and sterilized floors. They sat by the window overlooking the rain-soaked garden. "She is something, isn't she?" Anna said quietly. "She reminds me of why I chose this job." Daniel nodded. "I used to think hospitals were places of endings. Now I see they can also be places of beginnings." Anna tilted her head. "You sound like someone who is learning to live again." He gave her a small, rueful smile. "Maybe I am." There was a comfortable silence between them, the kind that did not need filling. Then Anna said, "You know, when Mia first came here, she barely spoke to anyone. Her mother's death left her scared of trusting people. You have no idea what your visits have done for her." Daniel stared into his coffee. "She has done more for me than I have for her." "Maybe that is how healing works," Anna replied. "You think you are helping someone else, but really, you are saving yourself too." He looked up, meeting her gaze. For a moment, the noise of the cafeteria faded, leaving only the sound of rain and breath. That night, Daniel drove home through the drizzle, his mind full of color. He passed the small park where he used to walk with Emily and Nathan, and for the first time he stopped the car and sat there. He watched the empty swings swaying in the rain, and instead of sadness, he felt gratitude. When he reached home, he called his sister again. "Tell Nathan I will pick him up next week," he said. "I think it is time he met someone very special." "Who?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "A little girl who taught me that broken hearts can still draw skies." In her hospital bed, Mia woke briefly in the night. She reached for her sketchbook and added one last touch to the drawing: a man, a woman, and a boy standing under a blue sky. Beneath it, she wrote in wobbly letters, "No one is ever really gone." Then she smiled to herself, whispered good night to the stars outside the window, and drifted back to sleep as the sound of rain softly tapped the glass like a heartbeat finding rhythm again. The weekend arrived with soft sunlight streaming through the clouds, turning the glass walls of Street Helena Memorial Hospital into mirrors of gold. Daniel Hart stepped out of his car holding a small stuffed bear and a brown envelope tucked under his arm. He had promised Mia he would visit again, and promises, he decided, were something sacred now. His driver offered to carry the gifts, but Daniel shook his head. "I will take them myself." The air smelled faintly of blooming jasmine from the hospital garden, and the steady rhythm of life inside the building felt strangely comforting. When Daniel reached the pediatric wing, he found Nurse Anna at the nurses' station reviewing files. She looked up and smiled warmly. "You are early today." "I could not stay away," he admitted. "I have something for Mia." "She will be thrilled," Anna said. "She has been drawing all morning, waiting for you." Daniel entered the room quietly. Mia was sitting up in bed, her pink cap replaced by a soft blue one today. Her sketchbook was open, and she was coloring a new picture. When she saw him, her eyes lit up. "Mr. Daniel, you came!" "I told you I would," he said, walking closer. "And I brought you a friend." He handed her the small stuffed bear. Mia gasped, hugging it tight. "He is so soft. What is his name?" Daniel smiled. "That is for you to decide." She thought for a moment, then grinned. "His name is Sunny, because he will remind me of sunshine even when it rains." "Sunny it is," Daniel said softly. He watched as she placed the bear beside her pillow, patting its head as if it were alive. "And what are you drawing today?" he asked. Mia turned the sketchbook toward him. On the page was a simple drawing of a hospital room with 3 figures inside: a man, a woman, and a little girl holding a bear. "That is us," she explained proudly. "You, Nurse Anna, and me. We are in my room, but look, there is a window full of stars. That means we are safe." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "It is beautiful, Mia." "You can have it," she said, tearing out the page carefully and handing it to him. "So you do not forget us." "I will never forget you," he whispered. Anna entered with a gentle knock, carrying Mia's lunch tray. "Time to eat, young lady," she said with a playful tone. "Vegetable soup and mashed potatoes today." Mia wrinkled her nose. "I wish it were pancakes," Daniel chuckled. "Maybe I can arrange that next time." Anna raised an eyebrow. "Pancakes in a hospital? You will spoil her." "She deserves it," Daniel said. "She deserves the whole world." Anna set the tray down and glanced at Daniel. "You know, there is a children's art exhibition next week at the City Hall. Some of the hospital kids have been invited to display their drawings. Mia's work would fit perfectly." "Really?" Mia asked, eyes wide. "Can I go?" Anna hesitated. "We will see what the doctor says. It depends on how you are feeling." "I will feel great," Mia said quickly. "I have to show people my sky." Daniel looked at Anna. "If she gets the doctor's approval, I will make sure she has a special place there." Anna smiled. "I had a feeling you would say that." Later that afternoon, while Mia napped, Daniel and Anna walked through the hospital garden. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of roses and disinfectant. Daniel paused near a small bench beneath a maple tree. "This place has changed me," he said quietly. "I came here thinking I was just writing checks, keeping promises to a memory. But that child, she makes me feel alive again." Anna looked at him gently. "She does that to everyone she meets, but I think she sees something in you that you cannot see in yourself." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe she just believes in people more than they deserve." "Children often do," Anna replied. "That is what makes them pure." The sound of laughter drifted from an open window above them. Mia's voice, bright and unfiltered. Daniel looked up, his heart swelling with something he could not quite name. He turned back to Anna. "I want to do more than donate. I want to build something here, a place for children like her to create, to feel hope." Anna's eyes widened. "You mean it?" "Completely," Daniel said. "A foundation, maybe. Something called the Healing Hands Project. It will be a partnership between Hart Group and this hospital." "That would change lives," Anna whispered. "It already changed mine," he said simply. As the day faded, Daniel returned to Mia's room one last time before leaving. She was awake again, watching cartoons on the small television. When she noticed him, she reached for his hand. "Will you come tomorrow?" she asked. "I always worry people forget." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "I will not forget. You are my little artist, remember?" She smiled sleepily. "Then I will draw you a surprise." "I cannot wait," he said. As he walked down the corridor toward the elevator, Daniel passed the wall of donor plaques' names engraved in bronze. He stopped and looked at them for a long time. Then he pulled the brown envelope from under his arm and handed it to the receptionist. "For the children's wing," he said. "Use it for new art supplies, music lessons, whatever they need, but do not put my name on it." The woman looked surprised, but nodded. When Daniel stepped outside, the evening light painted the hospital in hues of amber and rose. He stood there for a moment, watching families come and go, realizing that for the first time in years, he felt a sense of belonging. In her room upstairs, Mia hugged her bear and whispered to it, "He smiled again today, Sonny. I think he is healing." And somewhere in the city, under the same fading light, Daniel looked up at the clouds and smiled, knowing that in helping her find color, she had quietly restored his own. The next morning, the hospital glowed with the soft energy of a new day. Sunlight poured through the wide glass windows, reflecting off the polished floors of the pediatric wing. Nurse Anna was already on her shift, organizing medical charts, when she saw Daniel Hart walk through the corridor, carrying a large canvas wrapped in brown paper. His presence was becoming familiar now, a quiet comfort that brightened the mood of both staff and patients. "You are early again," Anna said with a teasing smile as he approached. "You make this place feel like your second office," Daniel smiled back. "I prefer it here. The people are kinder." He nodded toward Mia's room. "Is she awake?" "Barely," Anna replied softly. "But she has been asking for you since dawn." Daniel entered the room quietly. Mia lay propped up against her pillows, a small oxygen tube resting under her nose. She looked pale but still wore her signature smile. "Mr. Daniel," she whispered, "you came." "Of course," he said gently. "I brought you something special." He unwrapped the canvas and revealed a framed version of her first drawing, the one of them sitting together in the cafeteria. The simple crayon lines had been carefully scanned and printed on fine paper, the colors restored to brilliance. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "The Chair of Kindness." Mia gasped and covered her mouth with both hands. "That is mine," she said in disbelief. "It is beautiful." "It is yours forever," Daniel said. "And if you let me, I would like to hang it in the new children's art room I am helping the hospital build." "You mean people will see my drawing?" she asked with awe. "Yes," Daniel said. "And they will know that kindness started with a little girl named Mia." Her eyes filled with tears of joy. "That means I am famous," she whispered. Daniel chuckled softly. "Famous for all the right reasons." Anna, standing by the doorway, felt a lump rise in her throat. She had watched wealthy donors come and go, but none had connected like this. Daniel did not act out of guilt or obligation. Every gesture came from genuine affection. Later that day, the hospital held a small press meeting to announce the new art room, funded anonymously by a private benefactor. Reporters buzzed around the lobby, snapping pictures of doctors and staff. Daniel stood in the back, unnoticed, watching as Mia's framed drawing was placed on an easel at the front of the crowd. Anna joined him quietly. "You could take credit for this, you know," she said. "People would love the story of the CEO who helped a child's dream come true." Daniel shook his head. "This is not about me, it is about her. She gave me more than I could ever repay." "You are a rare kind of man, Daniel," Anna said softly. He looked at her and smiled faintly. "Just someone learning to live again." When the event ended, Daniel and Anna returned to Mia's room. The little girl was sitting up, watching the commotion through the small television in the corner. "They showed my picture," she said proudly. "Everyone clapped." "You earned it," Daniel said. "You taught the whole world something today." "What did I teach them?" she asked curiously. "That even the smallest heart can hold the biggest light," he replied. Mia blushed and looked down. "Then I will keep shining until I cannot anymore." Anna and Daniel exchanged a quick glance, both struck by the bittersweet courage in her words. "You will keep shining for a long, long time," Anna said, smoothing Mia's blanket, "because we will not let that light go out." "Promise?" Mia asked. "Promise," they said in unison. As the afternoon light dimmed, Daniel sat by her bedside while she colored in a new sketchbook. He watched her carefully outline a tall building with windows filled with flowers. "What is that?" he asked. "It is your new art room," she said confidently. "But I added a secret garden on the roof. That way, when kids feel tired, they can go up and breathe." "That is a brilliant idea," Daniel said. "I will make sure it happens." "Really?" she asked, eyes wide. "Really," he promised. "We will build it together." Anna stepped forward, smiling. "Looks like you have a new business partner, Mr. Hart." "The best one I have ever had," Daniel replied. That evening, as Daniel prepared to leave, Mia handed him another drawing. This one was of a large heart filled with smaller hearts inside it. "This is for you," she said, "because you have room for everyone." Daniel took it carefully, his throat tightening again. "Thank you, Mia. I will keep it close, always." Outside, the sun dipped behind the hospital's tall walls, and the golden light faded into dusk. As Daniel walked through the parking lot, he looked up at the hospital windows glowing against the twilight. For the first time, he saw them not as symbols of pain, but as beacons of hope. Inside, Mia drifted to sleep, her small hand resting on the bear she named Sunny, her breathing steady. Anna tucked the blanket around her and whispered, "You are doing so well, sweetheart." Then she looked toward the door where Daniel had stood moments ago and smiled. Sometimes healing did not come from medicine or machines. Sometimes it came from people who found each other by chance, who filled the empty spaces with love, and who proved that even in the quietest corners of the world, kindness could bloom like sunlight in the dark. The next week brought a sense of quiet celebration through the halls of Street Helena Memorial Hospital. The children's art room had officially opened, and Mia's drawing of the Chair of Kindness hung proudly on the wall above the doorway. Parents, doctors, and nurses stopped to look at it, their faces softening every time they read the little gold plaque beneath it. Daniel Hart visited nearly every day, often bringing new supplies or small surprises for the kids' coloring books, stuffed animals, or boxes of paints that filled the room with bright possibilities. Word of the mysterious benefactor began to spread among the hospital staff, though few knew his identity. To most, Daniel was just the quiet man in the tailored suit who spent his afternoons in the pediatric wing, reading stories or helping children paint clouds. Nurse Anna had started to notice the whispers. One morning, while pouring coffee in the staff lounge, two orderlies spoke near the vending machine. "Have you seen that guy in the pediatric ward?" one of them asked. "The one who looks like he walked out of a magazine cover?" The other laughed. "Yeah, I heard he drives a car worth more than this entire floor. No idea what he is doing here every day." "Maybe he is one of those investors," the first replied. "You know, buying good karma." Anna smiled to herself, knowing how wrong they were. Daniel was not there for attention or business. He was there for something far deeper. Later that day, Anna passed through the art room and saw him kneeling beside Mia, helping her trace stars on a blue canvas. His sleeves were rolled up, his tie loosened, and a smudge of paint streaked across his hand. Mia was talking endlessly about the upcoming city art exhibition, explaining how she wanted to wear a yellow dress and pink shoes. "Yellow makes me feel brave," she said. Daniel nodded. Then you will look like sunshine itself. You will come too, right? She asked eagerly. You promised. I would not miss it for the world, Daniel said. Anna lingered at the doorway, watching them. Something about the way Daniel looked at the little girl, protective but gentle, reminded her of a father who had lost too much and was slowly finding his way back to love. Later, when Mia left for a short checkup, Anna walked into the room to clean up the brushes. Daniel was wiping paint off his wrist with a paper towel. You are good with her, Anna said. She is lucky to have you. Daniel looked up. I am the lucky one. She hesitated, then asked softly, Why do I feel like there is more to your visits than kindness? Daniel paused, folding the paper towel carefully. Because there is, he admitted. I come here because I see my wife in her courage, and I see my son in her laughter. They remind me of what I almost forgot how to care without fear. Anna nodded slowly. And your son? Does he know you come here? Not yet, Daniel said. But I plan to bring him soon. I want him to meet her. Mia would love that, Anna said with a gentle smile. She has a gift for bringing people together. Daniel smiled faintly. Yes, she does. That afternoon, Daniel attended a meeting with the hospital board about the new Healing Hands project. It was supposed to be a quiet partnership, but rumors had already reached the upper offices. The director, a sharp man in his 60s named Dr. Collins, leaned back in his chair and studied Daniel. You are quite the mystery, Mr. Hart. I have heard whispers that the founder of Hart Group is funding our new project. Should I assume that whisper is true? Daniel hesitated. If it is, does that change anything? Not at all, Dr. Collins said. But it will attract attention. Reporters love stories about wealthy men saving sick children. Daniel's jaw tightened. That is not what this is about. I understand, the doctor said kindly. But you should be prepared. Secrets do not stay buried for long. Daniel left the meeting with a heavy heart. He had built his entire company by staying out of the spotlight, and now, one kind act was threatening to drag him back into it. Still, when he returned to the art room and saw Mia laughing with Anna, the worry faded. That night, after Mia fell asleep, Anna found Daniel standing in the corridor outside her room. You look like a man carrying too much, she said. Maybe you should share some of it. He gave a weary smile. Old habits die hard. Let me guess, she said softly. You spent years taking care of everyone but yourself. He nodded. And now, I am trying to remember how to let others help. Anna looked through the glass window at Mia's sleeping form, her small chest rising and falling with steady breaths. You already have, she said. You just do not see it yet. Daniel turned toward her, his voice low. You make it sound easy. Healing never is, she said. But it starts when you stop running from the things that hurt. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the dark sky, and a quiet calm settled between them. Daniel realized how much he trusted this woman, the nurse who spoke with warmth and carried herself with quiet strength. She reminded him of the kind of person his wife used to be, someone who found light even in shadows. When he finally left the hospital that night, Daniel glanced once more at the window of Mia's room. The night nurse had dimmed the lights, and the little girl's stuffed bear sat beside her pillow. She looked peaceful, safe. For Daniel, it was more than enough reason to come back again tomorrow, no matter what storms might be waiting outside. The following morning arrived with a soft winter chill hanging in the air. The trees lining the front of Street Helena Memorial Hospital shimmered with frost, and the parking lot glistened under the pale sunlight. Inside the pediatric ward, the mood was warm and bright. Paper snowflakes hung from the ceiling, and the nurses had decorated the hallway with tiny twinkling lights. Daniel Hart stepped through the elevator doors holding a gift bag wrapped in blue paper and a thermos of hot cocoa. It had become a quiet routine for him to stop by the cafe downstairs, buy 2 cups, and bring one for Nurse Anna. She greeted him with her usual smile, her dark hair pulled back neatly. You are spoiling us, Mr. Hart, she said, taking the cup. If you keep this up, we will have to add you to the payroll. Daniel chuckled softly. You already pay me enough with smiles. Flattery will not get you out of donating more art supplies, she teased. Mia is running out of blue paint again. Daniel grinned. I will bring an entire crate tomorrow. They walked down the hall together, and when they reached Mia's room, They found her sitting up, sketching eagerly in her book. Her face brightened when she saw them. "You came back!" she exclaimed, waving her crayon. "Look, I am drawing the park." Daniel leaned over the bed. "The one you can see from your window?" "Yes," she said, pointing to the drawing. "See that bench? That is where I want to sit one day when I get better. And you and Nurse Anna will sit with me. We will feed the birds." Anna smiled gently. "That sounds like a perfect day." Daniel nodded. "We will make sure it happens." Mia grinned, satisfied. "Then I will draw it so it comes true faster." As she bent over the page again, Daniel reached into the gift bag. "I have something for you," he said. "Close your eyes." She obeyed instantly, squeezing her eyes shut. He placed a small locket in her hand. When she opened it, she gasped. Inside the heart-shaped pendant was a tiny print of her own drawing. "The chair of kindness. You made this for me?" she whispered. "Yes," Daniel said softly. "So you can always remember how strong you are." "It is perfect," she said, her voice trembling with joy. She placed it against her chest, eyes shining. "Now I will never forget that kindness is real." Anna wiped at her eye discreetly. The moment was pure and delicate, like the first light of dawn. After lunch, Mia dozed off, her small hand clutching the locket. Daniel and Anna stepped out into the hallway. "You have a gift for this," Anna said quietly. "For finding exactly what people need." Daniel shook his head. "She gives more to me than I could ever give to her." Anna studied him for a moment. "Do you ever think you were meant to find her?" He paused, her words lingering in the air. "Sometimes I think she found me." As they walked toward the nurses' station, they passed a cluster of hospital administrators. One of them, a sharp-dressed man named Mr. Riley, lowered his voice as Daniel walked by. "That is the man who has been funding the new project. Word is he is some kind of billionaire." Anna frowned slightly. She did not like the tone. Riley continued, "I bet he is trying to clean up his company's image. These CEOs always have a reason." Daniel pretended not to hear, but Anna could see the flicker of hurt in his expression. Later, when they were alone in the stairwell, she said softly, "You should not let that bother you." "It is fine," he said quietly. "People see what they want to see." "Maybe," she said. "But the people who matter, they see who you really are." He looked at her then, his gaze lingering longer than it should. "And who do you see?" Anna held his eyes. "I see a man who lost something precious and decided to turn the pain into light." The silence between them deepened, warm and fragile. He wanted to say something more, but stopped himself. Instead, he nodded. "Thank you." That evening, Daniel visited Mia one last time before heading home. She was awake again, sitting by the window, watching the snowflakes drift through the air. "They look like tiny stars," she said. "Do you think heaven has snow?" "If it does," Daniel replied, "I bet it looks just like this." "Then I hope my mom is watching," Mia whispered. She loved snow. Daniel sat beside her. "I am sure she is watching, proud of you every single day." "Do you think people in heaven can see us?" she asked. "I think they do," he said. "They send us little signs to remind us they are still close." Mia smiled faintly. "Like when the sunlight feels warm, even on a cold day?" "Exactly," Daniel said. "That is their way of saying, I am still here." She leaned against his arm, her voice soft and sleepy. "Then I will look for sunlight tomorrow." "You will find it," he said. When she finally drifted to sleep, Daniel stood quietly, watching her breathe. The soft glow of the monitor reflected against her face, and for a moment, he imagined his wife's spirit smiling somewhere nearby. As he left the room, Anna met him by the door. "She is having a good night," she whispered. "Thanks to you." "Thanks to all of us," Daniel replied. "Kindness works better as a team." As he walked through the dim hallway toward the exit, the framed drawing of "The Chair of Kindness" caught his eye once more. It glowed faintly in the light, and he smiled, realizing how something so small, a child's sketch, a simple question had become the spark that reignited everything he had lost. Outside, the snow began to fall heavier, covering the city in silence, and Daniel felt something unfamiliar yet welcome settle inside him peace. The next morning arrived, wrapped in the hush of falling snow. The hospital courtyard was covered in a white blanket, and children's laughter echoed faintly from the playroom as they pressed handprints against the frosted glass. Inside her room, Mia was wide awake, her cheeks flushed with excitement. She was waiting for Daniel Hart. He had promised to visit early today to help her prepare for something special. Nurse Anna had already set out a small tray with a mirror, ribbons, and a hairbrush. When Daniel entered, carrying a small paper bag and a gentle smile, Mia's face lit up brighter than the winter sky. "You are late," she teased. "You said early." Daniel laughed softly. "Traffic was terrible, Miss Sunshine, but I brought peace offerings." He set the bag on her bedside table and pulled out a bundle of fresh yellow ribbons. "These are for your hair." "You said you wanted to look brave," Mia gasped. "They are perfect!" "Nurse Anna, can you help me?" Anna smiled warmly. "Of course I can." As Anna brushed Mia's soft hair and tied the ribbons into neat bows, Daniel explained that today the hospital would host a small Winter Smiles Day, a mini celebration to lift the children's spirits. "There will be music and cookies," he said, pretending to whisper a secret. "And maybe a few surprises." "Will there be balloons?" Mia asked eagerly. "Lots of them," he replied. "Maybe even a snowman if we can find enough snow." "Then it will be the best day ever," Mia declared. As they finished, she looked in the mirror and giggled. "Do I look brave?" Daniel crouched beside her. "You look like the bravest person I know." Her laughter filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. Later that afternoon, the hospital atrium was transformed. The staff had decorated with paper snowflakes, garlands, and colored lights. Children from different wards gathered with their parents and nurses, their wheelchairs lined with glittering tinsel. Music drifted from a small speaker, and the smell of cocoa filled the air. Mia sat near the front in her yellow dress and ribbons, her locket resting over her heart. Daniel stood near the back, watching her with quiet pride. When it was time for the performances, the children took turns singing or reading poems. When Mia's turn came, she held a small piece of paper and walked carefully to the microphone, with Anna steadying her arm. Her voice trembled at first, but soon grew stronger. "This is my poem," she said. "It is called The Sky We Paint." The room fell silent. "Sometimes the world feels too big," she read, "and people forget how to look up. But if you draw a little piece of blue and share it with someone sad, maybe their world will get brighter too. The sky is for everyone, even the ones who forgot how to dream." When she finished, the audience applauded, and Daniel felt his throat tighten. Tears stung his eyes, but he smiled, clapping louder than anyone else. After the event ended, he found her sitting by the Christmas tree, sipping cocoa. "You were incredible," he said. "You made everyone remember how to dream." Mia blushed. "Did I make you proud?" "More than you will ever know." "Then it worked," she said softly. "My mom used to tell me that when you do something kind, angels clap their hands." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then heaven must be very loud today." Later that evening, as the decorations were being taken down, Mia grew tired. Anna helped her back to her room, and Daniel followed. When she settled under her blanket, she reached for his hand. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked suddenly. Daniel looked at her, surprised. "Scared of what?" "Of losing people again," she said. "I think about it sometimes. I do not want people I love to be sad when I am gone." Daniel's voice softened. "Mia, the people who love you will never forget you. They will carry your light wherever they go. You have already changed more lives than you know." "Even yours?" she asked. "Especially mine." She smiled, her eyelids drooping. "Then I am happy." As she drifted into sleep, Daniel sat quietly beside her, listening to the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. The soft beeping filled the silence, a reminder of life's fragile yet persistent pulse. Anna entered after a while, carrying a warm blanket. She draped it over Mia and looked at Daniel. "You care for her like she is your own," she whispered. "In many ways, she is," he said quietly. "She brought my heart back to life." "She has that effect," Anna replied. "But sometimes, it also means saying goodbye when it is hardest." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know." When he finally left the room, snow was still falling outside, blanketing the city in white. He stood by the hospital window for a long time, watching the flakes drift under the streetlights. For the first time in years, he prayed not for wealth, not for redemption, but for one small miracle. that the child sleeping upstairs would get another sunrise. Inside her room, Mia stirred slightly in her sleep, her hand resting over the locket Daniel had given her. The engraved words caught the dim light, "Kindness is forever." And somewhere deep in the stillness, it felt true. The snow outside the hospital had turned to rain by the next morning, and the gray sky hung low over the city like a heavy curtain. Inside the pediatric wing, the soft hum of machines blended with the quiet shuffle of nurses moving from room to room. Daniel Hart arrived early, as always, his coat still damp from the drizzle. He carried a paper bag with muffins from Mia's favorite cafe and a bouquet of daisies, freshly cut and still glistening with raindrops. When he stepped into her room, he immediately sensed something was different. The air felt heavier, and the soft beeping of the heart monitor seemed slower than usual. Nurse Anna stood by the bed, adjusting the IV drip. She looked up and smiled faintly, though her eyes betrayed a hint of worry. "Good morning, Daniel," she said softly. "She is awake but tired. The doctor said her counts dropped again last night." Daniel's heart clenched. He set the flowers on the windowsill and took a deep breath before walking closer. "Hey, sunshine," he said gently. Mia turned her head toward him, her smile weak but warm. "You came," she whispered. "I always come," he said, sitting beside her. "I brought muffins," she giggled softly. "The blueberry ones?" "Of course," he said. "You think I would forget?" "You never forget," she said, her voice small. "That is why I like you." He handed her a piece of muffin, but she shook her head. "Maybe later. I just want to talk." Daniel's chest tightened. "All right," he said. "What do you want to talk about?" "About dreams," she said. "I had one last night. I was flying above the city, and there were lights everywhere. I saw people smiling, even the ones who were sad before." "That sounds beautiful," he said softly. "It was," she replied. "But then I woke up, and I could not breathe for a minute. It scared me." Daniel reached for her hand. "You are safe now, Mia. You are not alone." She looked at him with those big, honest eyes. "If I have to go someday, will you still remember me?" His throat ached as he swallowed hard. "I will remember you every single day," he said. "You will not just be a memory, Mia. You will be a part of everything I do." She smiled faintly. "Then you have to promise me something." "Anything," he whispered. "Promise me you will keep helping people, even after I am gone. Promise you will build the garden I drew." "I promise," he said firmly, "and I will name it after you." Her smile grew, soft and peaceful. "Then I am not scared anymore." Anna stepped closer and placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "She has been having a hard week," she said quietly. "The treatments are not working as well as before." Daniel nodded silently. He wanted to say something, anything that could fix it, but there were no words strong enough. The rest of the day passed in slow motion. Mia drifted in and out of sleep, and Daniel stayed by her side, reading her favorite story about a princess who painted the sky with her laughter. Every time she smiled, he pretended not to notice the way her fingers trembled. By evening, a light rain began to fall again. The city lights blurred outside the window, reflecting in streaks on the glass. Daniel sat by her bed, still holding her hand. Anna came in with a tray of medication and whispered, "She might rest better tonight." "I can stay?" Daniel asked. Anna hesitated but nodded, "Just for a little while." As the hours passed, the steady rhythm of the heart monitor became his anchor. At one point, Mia stirred and opened her eyes again. "Mr. Daniel?" she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart? Can you tell me a story?" "Which one?" "The one about the sky." Daniel smiled, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. "Once upon a time, there was a little girl who taught the clouds how to smile. Every time she laughed, the whole sky turned blue. Even on the darkest days, her light never faded." Mia's eyes fluttered closed, a faint smile touching her lips. "That sounds like a happy story," she murmured. "It is," he said, "because it is yours." When she finally drifted into sleep, Daniel sat there for a long time, listening to the rain and the hum of machines. Anna returned quietly, placing a blanket over his shoulders. "You should rest too," she whispered. "I will," he said, though he did not move. The next morning, when Daniel finally stepped out into the cold dawn, the rain had stopped. The air was crisp, and the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. He stood by his car for a long time, staring up at the brightening sky. Somewhere in the stillness, he thought he heard a child's laughter carried on the wind. It sounded light, free, and full of peace. At that moment, Daniel made himself a silent vow. No matter what happened, he would keep his promise. He would build the garden, the one with flowers and sunlight, the one that would carry her name. Because kindness, like love, did not end when life did. It lived on in art, in memory, and in the hearts it had touched. The following week passed like a blur, with rain giving way to sunlight, and then back again. Daniel Hart kept his promise to visit every single day, even when business meetings piled up and his phone buzzed with unanswered calls. His world had slowly shifted from skyscrapers and boardrooms to hospital corridors and children's laughter. One afternoon, when he arrived at the pediatric ward, he noticed an unfamiliar silence. The nurses were speaking in hushed tones near the nurses' station, and their faces carried a quiet strain. Nurse Anna approached him gently. "Mia had a difficult night," she said softly. "The doctors are monitoring her closely. She is stable for now, but they are moving her to a private room." Daniel's heart clenched. "Can I see her?" "Of course," Anna said. "She has been asking for you." When Daniel entered the new room, the lights were dimmed, and the rhythmic beeping of machines filled the air. Mia looked smaller than he remembered, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. Yet when she saw him, her lips curved into a faint smile. "Hey, Mr. Daniel," she whispered. "You kept your promise again." "Always," he said quietly, sitting beside her. "How are you feeling today?" "A little tired," she admitted. "But the doctors said I am strong." "You are the strongest person I know," Daniel said. "Stronger than me." She smiled weakly. "That is because I have my lucky locket." She lifted it slightly, the tiny pendant gleaming under the soft light. "It makes me brave." Daniel swallowed hard. "You make that locket brave." For a moment, they just sat there in silence, the sound of her breathing blending with the soft hum of the monitors. Then Mia said, "Mr. Daniel, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course," he said. "I am not scared anymore," she whispered. "I used to be scared that when people leave, they forget. But I know now that when someone loves you, they never really go away." Daniel felt his chest tighten, the words catching in his throat. "You are right, Mia, they never go away." She smiled again, her eyes closing slowly. "That is what my mom used to say." He watched her drift into light sleep, the rise and fall of her chest steady but fragile. Anna entered quietly with a chart in her hand. "She is holding on," she whispered, "but her body is getting tired." Daniel nodded, his voice low. "I know." "You should get some rest," Anna said softly. "You have been here for hours." "I cannot leave," he said simply. "Not tonight." Anna looked at him for a long moment before nodding. "Then, I will bring you some coffee." Hours passed. The rain outside turned into a soft drizzle, tapping gently against the window. Daniel sat by Mia's bedside, holding her small hand in his. He spoke softly, telling her stories about the garden they would build. "It will have sunflowers taller than you," he said, "and benches where people can sit and think about someone they love. There will be a little fountain, and I will name it after you, the Mia Fountain." Even in her sleep, she smiled faintly, her hand twitching as if she could see it. When Anna returned with coffee, she found Daniel still talking to her, his voice a steady rhythm of hope. "She can hear you," Anna whispered. "Keep talking." "I know," Daniel said quietly. "I do not want her to feel alone." The next morning came quietly, with soft light filtering through the blinds. Mia's breathing grew slower, and the doctors moved gently around her, checking monitors and adjusting medications. Daniel never left his chair. When the nurse placed a warm blanket around his shoulders, he barely noticed. Around noon, Mia opened her eyes again. "Mr. Daniel?" she whispered. "I am here," he said quickly. "I am right here. Promise me something else," she said, her voice barely audible. "Anything," he said, leaning close. "Promise you will take care of Nurse Anna, too. She worries too much." Daniel smiled through the ache. "I promise." Mia's gaze softened. "Good," she said, her eyes fluttering closed again. "Then I can rest." Her fingers relaxed in his hand, and the room seemed to fall still, except for the faint hum of the machines. Anna stepped closer, her voice trembling. "She is resting now," she whispered. Daniel stayed by her side long after the doctors left, the room filled with quiet light. Outside, the clouds broke open, and sunlight streamed through the window. Warm and golden. He looked at her peaceful face and whispered, "You kept your promise too, Mia. You made the world brighter." When he finally stood to leave, he paused by the door and looked back one last time. The locket around her neck caught the sunlight, sending a small reflection across the room like a flicker of heaven's light. That was how he chose to remember her: radiant, brave, and eternal. Later that day, Daniel walked alone through the hospital garden. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain and earth. He sat on a bench beneath a tree and looked up at the sky. Somewhere in the vast blue, he felt her presence, a warmth that touched his heart without words. He whispered softly, "Thank you, Mia, for teaching me how to live again." The wind rustled through the branches as if answering back, and he knew, deep down, that she would always be near. The day after Mia's passing, the world outside seemed quieter, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. The winter sun rose slowly over the city, spilling pale light across the hospital garden where Daniel Hart sat on the same bench he had promised to build for her. The faint scent of rain and soil lingered in the air. He held Mia's locket in his hand, the tiny pendant warm from his palm. Inside, it was her drawing of the chair of kindness, folded neatly like a secret he would never forget. Nurse Anna found him there hours later, still wearing the same suit from the night before, his hair damp from the mist. She stopped beside the bench, her voice soft but steady. "I thought you might be here," she said. Daniel looked up slowly. "I could not leave. It feels wrong to go anywhere else." Anna sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap. "The doctors said she passed peacefully," she whispered. "No pain." She was smiling. Daniel nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "She told me she was not scared anymore." She was right. For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the rustle of the trees. Finally, Anna said, "The hospital is planning a small memorial for her. They want to place her artwork in the main hallway. The staff thought you might want to speak." Daniel stared down at the locket. "I do not know if I can," he said. "I do not even know where to begin." "You could begin with what she gave you," Anna said gently. "Hope." Her words hung in the air like the faint glow of morning light. A week later, the hospital gathered in the atrium for the memorial. Nurses, doctors, patients, and families stood together, surrounded by drawings and paintings from the children's art room. At the center of the display was Mia's final piece, "The Sky We Paint," a sweeping canvas filled with shades of blue, white, and gold. Underneath it was a small plaque that read, "In loving memory of Mia Harper, whose kindness colored the world." Daniel stood at the front, holding the locket in his hand. His voice was calm but filled with emotion. "Mia once told me that the sky is for everyone, even for those who forgot how to dream. She reminded me that no matter how much we lose, love never disappears. It just changes shape." The crowd listened in stillness. "She asked me to promise I would build a garden for her, a place where children could come to paint, to play, to heal. And I will keep that promise, because that is what she taught me, to turn pain into something beautiful." When he finished, the room erupted in gentle applause, not loud or thunderous, but full of warmth. Anna wiped her tears discreetly as Daniel stepped down. After the ceremony, the hospital director approached him. "Mr. Hart, the foundation you started, the Healing Hands Project, has already begun changing lives. Would you allow us to name the new children's wing after Mia?" Daniel hesitated, emotion swelling in his chest. "Only if it inspires others the way she inspired me," he said. The director nodded. "Then it is settled. The Mia Harper Wing." Weeks turned into months, and construction on the garden began behind the hospital. Daniel visited the site every day, watching workers plant rows of sunflowers, daisies, and lavender. A small fountain stood at the center, engraved with the words, "Kindness is forever." Children who were strong enough to walk began to visit the garden, leaving hand-painted rocks and paper cranes around the fountain. It became a place of peace, just as Mia had imagined. One afternoon, Anna found Daniel standing by the garden entrance. He looked healthier now. The dark circles beneath his eyes replaced with quiet resolve. "It is beautiful," she said. She would have loved it. Daniel nodded, his gaze fixed on the flowers swaying in the breeze. "She is here," he said softly. "Every time the wind moves, I feel her." Anna smiled gently. "You know, Mia's mother used to volunteer here years ago. That is how I met them. She told me once that if anything ever happened to her, she wanted her daughter to keep smiling. I think she would be proud of what you have done." Daniel turned to her, a faint smile on his lips. "We did this together. You were the one who kept believing when I could not. You were the one who showed up when no one else did," Anna replied. "That is what healing looks like, two people holding on when everything hurts." The two stood in silence, the golden light of sunset reflecting in the hospital windows. As the fountain's gentle sound filled the air, Daniel opened the locket once more and placed it on the stone base beneath the water. "This belongs here," he said quietly. "With her." Anna nodded, her eyes glistening. "It is perfect." That night, as Daniel drove home, he rolled down the window and let the cool air fill the car. The city lights shimmered like scattered stars, and for the first time in years, he did not feel alone. Somewhere beyond the skyline, he imagined Mia's laughter echoing in the wind. She had kept her promise, she had made him smile again. And as he whispered her name into the night, the world seemed to breathe with him, carrying her light into tomorrow. Spring arrived quietly at Street Helena Memorial Hospital, bringing with it the first blossoms of color to the Healing Hands garden. The flowers had bloomed earlier than expected, spreading waves of yellow and white beneath the soft April sunlight. Patients came with their families to walk the garden paths, their laughter mingling with the sound of the fountain that now bore Mia's name. Daniel Hart stood by the edge of the fountain, his reflection rippling on the water's surface. He visited often, sometimes to meet with hospital administrators, sometimes to sit alone and listen to the wind. Today he was there for something different. It had been exactly 3 months since the garden opened, and the hospital had planned a small ceremony to celebrate the completion of the Mia Harper wing. Nurse Anna found him standing near the roses, holding a folder in his hand. "You are early again," she said with a smile. "You are starting to make the rest of us look bad." Daniel smiled faintly. "I had to make sure everything was perfect." "It already is," she said. "The garden looks beautiful. The kids love it. Mia would have loved it too," he replied quietly. "She used to talk about painting a sky full of flowers. I think we managed to give her that." Anna nodded, her eyes soft. "She would be proud of you." "I just kept my promise," Daniel said. "She did the hard part." She believed. As they walked together toward the main building, the sounds of children playing drifted through the open windows. The new wing was bright and colorful, decorated with murals painted by local artists and patients. On one wall, a large painting of a little girl with a locket and ribbons in her hair looked out over the hallway. Above it were the words, "Kindness is forever." Daniel paused beneath it, staring at the image for a long moment. "She really is everywhere now," he said softly. Her spirit stayed. Anna looked at him, her voice gentle. "You brought her story to life. That is a rare kind of legacy." "It does not feel like enough," he said. "There are still so many children who need help." "Then keep helping them," Anna replied. That is what she would want. The ceremony began that afternoon. Reporters gathered outside as doctors and families filled the atrium. The hospital director gave a speech about the impact of the Healing Hands project, explaining how the new wing would provide free care to children from low-income families. When Daniel was invited to speak, he stepped up to the podium, his heart pounding. "This project began with a promise," he said. "A promise to a little girl who reminded me that even in our darkest moments, we can still find light. She showed me that healing is not just about medicine. It is about love, compassion, and kindness." He paused, looking toward the mural. "Mia believed that small acts of kindness could change the world. Today, I believe it too." The audience erupted in applause, and for a brief moment, Daniel saw her smile again, in his mind, bright, brave, and full of hope. After the event, a young boy approached him shyly, holding a sketchbook. He was about 7 years old, his head bald from chemotherapy. "Mr. Hart," he said, "I drew something for you." Daniel knelt to take the drawing. It was a picture of the garden, with the fountain at the center and a small figure sitting on a bench beneath a tree. "That is Mia," the boy said proudly. She is the one who made the flowers grow, right? Daniel's throat tightened as he nodded. Yes, he said. She is the reason we have all this beauty. Then I am going to make a garden like hers someday, the boy said. For other kids. You will, Daniel said softly. And when you do, I will be there to see it. Anna stood a few steps away, watching the exchange with tears in her eyes. Later, when the crowd had gone and the sun began to set, she and Daniel walked through the empty garden. The flowers swayed gently in the evening breeze, their petals glinting in the golden light. You did good today, Anna said. You made her proud. Daniel smiled faintly. I think she made me brave. They stopped by the fountain, and Daniel reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a folded piece of paper. It was the last drawing Mia had given him, the one of the garden she had imagined. He unfolded it and laid it carefully on the stone beside the water. It is complete now, he said quietly. Everything she dreamed of. Anna looked at the paper, her voice breaking slightly. She gave you something rare, Daniel. She gave you a second chance. Yes, he said, and I am not going to waste it. As they stood together in the fading light, a soft wind moved through the garden, carrying the scent of the flowers through the air. Somewhere in that quiet moment, Daniel could almost hear her voice again, whispering, "See? The sky is for everyone." He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun's last glow on his face. And for the first time in years, his heart felt completely whole. When he opened his eyes again, the world around him seemed brighter, alive with color and sound, as if every leaf and petal carried a little piece of the girl who had taught him how to love again. The months that followed the dedication of the Mia Harper wing brought quiet transformation to Daniel Hart's life. The Healing Hands Garden became more than just a tribute. It became a living place of renewal. Families visited on weekends, children painted on the benches, and doctors began holding therapy sessions outside under the sunlight. Every time Daniel visited, he saw the life that Mia's dream had inspired, and it grounded him in a peace he had never known before. He had begun to spend less time at the Hart Group headquarters and more time with the hospital foundation, learning the names of every child, shaking hands with every parent. People no longer saw him as a distant billionaire, but as a man who had decided to lead with his heart. One morning, as he walked through the hospital garden carrying a stack of files, he saw Nurse Anna kneeling beside the flower beds, helping a small boy plant seeds in the soil. The boy's laughter filled the air, and the sight stopped Daniel in his tracks. It felt like a reflection of everything Mia had stood for: hope, taking root, one tiny act at a time. When the boy ran off to join other children, Anna stood, brushing dirt from her gloves. "You look deep in thought," she said with a smile. "Just admiring your work," Daniel replied. "You make this place feel alive." "We all do," Anna said. "Every person who walks through here leaves a little kindness behind." Daniel nodded, then handed her one of the files. "This is the proposal for the next project, the Mia Harper Foundation Scholarship. It will help kids from underprivileged communities pursue medical studies or art therapy programs." Anna looked at the folder, her eyes widening. "You are serious about this?" "Completely," he said. "She once told me kindness should keep moving forward. This is how we make sure it does." Anna smiled, emotion softening her voice. "She would love that." "Then it is settled," Daniel said. "We start next month." Later that afternoon, a light drizzle began to fall. The rain shimmered through the sunlight, creating faint rainbows over the garden fountain. Daniel and Anna found themselves under the small wooden gazebo at the edge of the path, watching the drops fall. "You know," Anna said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were just another wealthy donor passing through. I never expected you to become part of this place." Daniel laughed quietly. "Neither did I. I came here thinking I could fix something with money. But I ended up being the one who was fixed." "Healing works both ways," she said. "You gave people hope, and in return, they gave you back your heart." Daniel turned toward her, his eyes meeting hers. "You helped too," he said. "I would not have made it through all of this without you." Anna looked down, her cheeks warming. "You do not give yourself enough credit, Daniel." "Maybe," he said softly, "but I know what it feels like to be lost, and I know who helped me find my way again." There was a pause, filled only by the sound of rain on the wooden roof. When Anna finally looked up, their eyes met again, And in that silence was a shared understanding that went beyond words, a connection built not on grief, but on the quiet strength that grows after loss. The moment was gentle and real, as natural as the rain falling around them. The next few weeks were busy with preparations for the scholarship launch. Daniel's face began appearing in newspapers again, though now the headlines were different. Instead of corporate deals and financial reports, they spoke of philanthropy, compassion, and change. One article read, "From CEO to Guardian, Daniel Hart's mission of healing." He did not seek attention, but he knew the visibility helped raise awareness and funds for the hospital's programs. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Daniel stopped by the garden again. The sun was setting, casting gold and orange hues across the sky. The fountain shimmered in the fading light, and he could hear the faint laughter of children echoing from the hospital windows. Anna joined him a few minutes later, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You look like a man who has been fighting the world," she teased. "Maybe just the board of directors," he said with a smile. "But they are finally coming around. I think they are starting to understand that success is not about profit anymore." "It is about purpose," Anna said. "Exactly," Daniel replied. They stood together in the warmth of the evening, sipping coffee as the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon. "Do you ever think about her?" Anna asked quietly. "Every day," Daniel said, "but not with sadness anymore. When I think of her now, it feels like gratitude." "She changed you," Anna said. "Yes," he replied. "She taught me that the smallest voice can leave the biggest echo." As the light faded completely, the garden lights flickered on, illuminating the flowers and the small plaque near the fountain. Daniel read the inscription again, his voice a whisper. "Kindness is forever." Then he turned to Anna and said softly, "I think it is time I start living that lesson in every part of my life." Anna smiled. "I think you already are." The evening breeze carried the scent of flowers through the air as they walked slowly toward the exit, the sound of the fountain following them like a lullaby. Above them, the first stars appeared, twinkling softly in the deepening sky, a reminder that love, once given, never truly fades. It simply changes form, lighting the way forward for those brave enough to keep believing. Summer arrived at St. Helena Memorial Hospital with golden sunlight spilling through the tall windows and the Healing Hands garden blooming brighter than ever before. The flowers seemed almost alive with color, and the laughter of children filled the air every afternoon. Daniel Hart stood near the fountain, watching a group of young patients paint small wooden signs to place around the garden. Each sign carried a word: hope, love, courage, smile. It reminded him of Mia's handwriting, the way she used to curve her letters like tiny wings ready to fly. He smiled quietly, feeling her presence in the warmth of the day. Nurse Anna walked up beside him, holding a clipboard. "You know, you are terrible at pretending you are not sentimental," she said playfully. Daniel chuckled. "Caught again." "Always," she replied. "But it is good to see you smile. You used to look like a man who forgot how." "I think I had to lose everything first," Daniel said softly. "That is when I realized what really mattered." Anna nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And now, he said, I am finally building something worth keeping." Over the next few weeks, Daniel worked closely with Anna and the hospital board to expand the Mia Harper Foundation. They opened new programs for families who needed long-term care support and introduced art therapy to neighboring hospitals. Every time he visited, Daniel made it a point to sit with at least one child, to listen, to learn, and to remind them that kindness could outlast pain. The media began to take notice again, this time painting a picture of a man transformed by empathy. But Daniel still avoided the spotlight. He preferred the quiet moments, the sound of paintbrushes, the laughter echoing from the art room, the sight of hope slowly coming back to life. One evening, as he was preparing to leave, he saw Anna still working at her desk in the nurse's station. The ward was dim except for the soft glow of the overhead light. He leaned against the doorway. "Do you ever go home?" he asked with a smile. She looked up, amused. "Do you ever take a day off?" "Touché," he said, stepping closer. "You know, I do not think I have ever thanked you properly." "For what?" she asked. "For being the one constant through all of this," Daniel said. "When everything felt like it was falling apart, you stayed. You gave me a reason to keep showing up." Anna lowered her gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was never out of obligation, Daniel. I stayed because I believed in what you were doing. And because— She hesitated. Because I cared. Daniel's chest tightened. He had always admired her strength, the calm in her voice, the way she carried light into every room without realizing it. He took a slow breath. You have no idea how much that means to me. She met his eyes, her expression soft but steady. I think I do. The silence that followed was gentle, filled only by the distant hum of machines. There was something unspoken between them, something neither of them was ready to name, but both could feel. The next morning, Daniel arrived early for the first scholarship ceremony hosted by the Mia Harper Foundation. Dozens of families and students filled the hospital auditorium, their faces glowing with gratitude and anticipation. Anna stood beside him on stage as the first recipients were called forward. They handed out certificates and small pins, shaped like sunflowers, the symbol Mia had once chosen for their project. When the ceremony ended, a local news reporter approached Daniel for a brief interview. Mr. Hart, you have achieved incredible success in business, but this project seems deeply personal. What inspired you to dedicate so much of your life to it? Daniel paused, glancing toward the photograph of Mia displayed on the screen behind them. A little girl taught me that kindness can change everything, he said. She reminded me that we all have the power to make the world brighter, no matter who we are. I am just trying to keep her light alive. The reporter smiled. That is beautiful. Daniel nodded humbly. It is true. After the event, he found Anna standing near the garden entrance, looking out over the flowers. You were incredible up there, she said. You made everyone feel like they were part of something bigger. They are, Daniel replied. Mia's light belongs to all of us now. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of lavender and sun-warmed earth. Anna turned to him. So what happens next, Daniel Hart? He smiled faintly. We keep going. We build, we help, and maybe, one day, we heal completely. You already have, she said softly. He looked at her, realizing she might be right. For years, his heart had been frozen by grief. But now it felt alive again, full of warmth and quiet strength. As they walked back toward the fountain, the evening sun dipped low, casting golden reflections across the water. The engraved words shimmered faintly. Kindness is forever. Daniel paused, his voice barely above a whisper. It really is, Mia. Then he turned to Anna, a rare and genuine smile spreading across his face. Ready to see what tomorrow brings? Always, she said. They stood side by side as the sky deepened into shades of pink and orange, the air filled with laughter, love, and the unshakable promise that even in loss, beauty can still grow. Autumn arrived slowly, painting the city in shades of amber and gold. The Healing Hands garden transformed with the season, the air scented with fallen leaves, and the faint sweetness of lavender that lingered from the summer blooms. Daniel Hart stood by the fountain early one morning, his hands in the pockets of his dark coat, watching the water shimmer under the soft light. The hospital was quiet, except for the sound of wind rustling through the trees. It had been 1 year since Mia's passing. The date had crept up on him quietly, and though the pain had softened with time, the ache of missing her never disappeared completely. He pulled from his pocket a small, folded drawing, the original sketch Mia had made of their imagined garden. The colors had faded slightly, but the message still glowed bright. She had drawn 3 figures sitting on a bench, a man, a woman, and a little girl holding a teddy bear. Daniel traced the lines with his thumb and smiled faintly. We did it, sunshine, he whispered. It is all here. Nurse Anna appeared behind him, her steps light on the stone path. She was carrying a thermos of coffee and 2 cups. You are here early, she said gently. I could not sleep, Daniel replied. I thought it was fitting to start the day where it all began. Anna poured him a cup and handed it over. I know what today means, she said. We are doing a remembrance walk later with the families. You should join us. I will, he said softly. I want to. They stood together in the cool morning, watching the sunlight spill across the fountain's engraved words. The sound of the water felt like a heartbeat, a quiet, steady reminder of life continuing forward. You know, Anna said after a moment, she would be so proud of you. The foundation has helped over 500 children this year. That is not just numbers on paper, Daniel. That is lives. It still does not feel like enough, he said. It never will, but I guess that is the point. Love does not have an ending. No, she said. It just changes how it looks. Later that afternoon, the remembrance walk began. Dozens of families gathered in the garden, each holding white balloons with handwritten names and messages. Children who had recovered returned to visit, their laughter echoing like music through the air. Daniel stood near the fountain with Anna, as the hospital director gave a short speech about hope and healing. When it was his turn to speak, Daniel stepped forward, the autumn wind tugging gently at his coat. "A year ago," he began, "a little girl asked me a simple question. Can I sit here? I said yes, and that moment changed my life forever. She taught me that kindness can begin in the smallest places, in a chair, in a word, in the quiet act of sitting beside someone who needs you. Today, we honor her and every child whose light continues to guide us." He paused, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Mia believed that love does not end when life does. It just finds new ways to grow. This garden, this foundation, every single life touched here, they are proof that she was right. When he finished, the crowd fell into a peaceful silence before releasing their balloons into the sky. The white dots drifted upward, catching the sunlight as they rose higher and higher, until they looked like stars scattered across the blue. Anna watched beside him, tears glistening in her eyes. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "It feels like she is right here." Daniel nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Then he said softly, "She always will be." After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Daniel and Anna remained in the garden. A small girl approached them shyly, holding a drawing. "Mr. Hart," she said, "I made this in art class. It is for you." He took the paper carefully. It was a crayon picture of the fountain, surrounded by flowers, and in the center was a smiling little girl wearing yellow ribbons. His heart swelled. "It is perfect," he said. "Thank you," the child grinned. "My mom says this garden makes people better. I think that is true." Daniel smiled through the ache in his chest. "I think so too." When she skipped away, Anna placed a hand on his arm. "You see? Her kindness keeps multiplying. It is endless." "It feels like that," he said, "like she left a ripple that never stops." As the sun began to set, painting the garden in shades of pink and gold, Daniel and Anna walked slowly along the path lined with sunflowers. The world felt softer somehow, the air full of quiet peace. "You know," Anna said after a while, "you never told me what you are planning next." Daniel smiled faintly. "Something Mia once said keeps coming back to me. The sky is for everyone. I want to expand the foundation beyond this hospital, maybe build art and healing centers in other cities. Places where children and families can find hope again." "That sounds incredible," Anna said, "and I think she would approve." "Then it is settled," he said. "We will start in the spring." As they reached the gate, Daniel turned back one last time to look at the fountain. The lights had come on, reflecting off the water like tiny stars. He whispered under his breath, "Thank you, Mia." The wind stirred softly, rustling the leaves as if answering back. He and Anna stood together in the fading light, the promise of tomorrow shining quietly between them, carried forward by the love that had begun with a single question and grown into something eternal. Winter returned to the city with soft flakes drifting through the air, blanketing the Healing Hands garden in white. The flowers had long since gone to sleep, but the place still carried warmth, a quiet pulse of life beneath the snow. Daniel Hart stood by the fountain in a thick coat, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. It had been another year since the garden's opening, and though time had moved forward, his connection to this place never faded. He was no longer just a visitor or benefactor. He had become part of its story. The Mia Harper Foundation had expanded far beyond Street, Helena Memorial Hospital. There were now branches in 3 other cities, each with their own gardens, art rooms, and therapy programs. The words, "Kindness is forever," had become the foundation's symbol, etched into every wall, every heart it touched. Daniel had never imagined his life would turn in this direction, but he felt a peace he had never known before. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small gold pin shaped like a sunflower, one of the first designs the foundation had ever made. He rubbed his thumb over its surface and smiled faintly. "We did it, Mia," he whispered. "You changed the world." Behind him, a familiar voice spoke softly. "Talking to the snow again, Mr. Hart?" He turned to see Nurse Anna approaching, bundled in a gray scarf and gloves. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and there was a kind of light in her eyes that had nothing to do with the weather. "Old habits," Daniel said with a smile. "You still working on Christmas Eve?" "You too," she teased. "You are supposed to be resting." "I am not good at resting," he admitted. She joined him beside the fountain, looking out at the snow-covered benches. "It looks different in the winter," she said. "Quieter, but still alive." "Kindness does not sleep," he said softly. "It just changes shape," Anna smiled. "That sounds like something she would have said." "Probably," he agreed. "She was always wiser than me." They fell into comfortable silence, the sound of snow crunching under their boots, the only noise between them. Finally, Anna spoke again. "You know, we are hosting a winter fundraiser tonight. The children have been working on handmade ornaments to sell. You should come." "I was planning to," Daniel said. "I already made a donation, but I think they deserve some company more than a check." "Then you better be ready to drink a lot of hot chocolate," Anna said with a laugh. That evening, the hospital lobby was transformed into a winter fair. String lights hung from the ceiling, and the scent of cinnamon and cocoa filled the air. Children ran from booth to booth, showing off crafts and paintings, their laughter echoing through the halls. Daniel walked among them, stopping often to listen, to smile, to encourage. Every moment reminded him of how far they had all come. Near the center of the room stood a Christmas tree covered in colorful ornaments painted by the children. Some had drawings of angels, others of gardens or hearts or stars. Daniel spotted one ornament painted bright yellow, with 3 small figures sitting on a bench under a blue sky. He felt his chest tighten. The caption below it read, "For Mia." Anna appeared beside him again, holding 2 cups of cocoa. "I saw that one," she said. "They all know her story. She has become part of this place's heartbeat." "She deserves that," Daniel said softly. "She started it all, and you carried it forward," Anna replied. "She gave you the spark, but you built the fire." He looked at her, his voice low. "You helped me keep it burning." For a moment, their eyes held, and there was warmth in the air that had nothing to do with the cocoa. "You should not give me too much credit," she said. "I was just doing my job." "No," he said gently. "You were doing more than that. You gave this place a soul." She looked away, a small smile curving her lips. "You have changed, Daniel Hart. For the better, I hope. Definitely for the better." The children began to sing carols near the lobby's entrance, their voices rising in soft harmony. Daniel and Anna listened quietly, the sound washing over them like light. When the song ended, Daniel took a deep breath. "Anna," he said, "I have been thinking a lot about what comes next. The foundation is growing fast, and I want someone I trust to help lead it with me." She blinked, surprised. "You mean?" "Yes," he said. "I want you to become the executive director. You already run half of it without the title." Her eyes widened. "Daniel, I do not know what to say." "Say yes," he said with a smile. "It would make me very happy." She laughed softly, emotion catching in her voice. "Then yes, I will." "Good," he said. "Then it is settled." As the evening drew to a close, snow began to fall again outside the tall glass windows. Daniel and Anna stepped out into the courtyard, where the lights from the garden twinkled beneath the blanket of white. The fountain was still running, its water sparkling under the soft glow of the lamps. Daniel reached out, brushing snow from the engraved words. "Kindness is forever." He read them aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. Anna looked at him, her eyes full of quiet understanding. "And so is love," she said. The wind carried her words into the night, mingling with the sound of the falling snow. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply stood there together, surrounded by light, by memory, by the unshakable truth that healing, real healing, was not about forgetting. It was about remembering with grace and continuing to love with an open heart. The first days of the new year brought a bright, cold morning to the city. The sunlight reflected off the glass windows of Street Helena Memorial Hospital, filling the Healing Hands garden with a pale golden glow. Daniel Hart arrived earlier than usual, his breath visible in the crisp air. He had spent the past week finalizing the foundation's expansion plans, and today he came not as the CEO of Hart Group, nor as a benefactor, but simply as himself, a man returning to the place that had given him a second chance at life. The fountain stood frozen in delicate layers of ice, its engraved words still visible beneath the frost. Daniel brushed off a bit of snow from the nearby bench and sat down, looking out at the quiet garden. "Good morning, Mia," he said softly. "The world keeps moving, but you are still right here." He reached into his coat pocket and took out the small sunflower pin that had become his daily keepsake. The metal felt cold in his hand, but it warmed quickly as he closed his fingers around it. Behind him, he heard footsteps approaching. It was Anna, her scarf tucked tightly around her neck, a smile visible even in the cold air. "You are talking to her again," she said. "Every time I come out here, I find you doing that." Daniel smiled faintly. "Old habits." "Good ones," she said. "She would like that you still visit." "It keeps me grounded," he replied. "Reminds me why I started all this." Anna handed him a paper cup of coffee. "The staff is already setting up for the Foundation's annual gala tonight," she said. "Are you ready for another round of speeches and cameras?" "As ready as I will ever be," Daniel said with a laugh. "But I am not sure I will ever get used to being the face of this." "You are not the face," Anna corrected gently. "You are the heart." Her words caught him off guard, and for a moment he could not find a response. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same compassion, steadiness, and quiet fire that had carried him through his darkest moments. "Thank you," he said finally, "for everything, for believing in me when I did not." "You made it easy," she said with a soft smile. "You kept showing up." That evening, the hospital's main hall transformed into a warm, glowing space filled with guests, donors, and staff. Strings of white lights hung from the ceiling, and tables were decorated with small vases of sunflowers and candles. The event marked 2 years since the creation of the Healing Hands Project, and it had already funded 4 children's centers across the country. Daniel mingled with guests, answering questions and thanking contributors. But his eyes often drifted toward Anna, who moved gracefully through the crowd, making everyone feel seen and welcome. When it came time for his speech, he stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room. The microphone hummed softly as he adjusted it. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady but warm. "2 years ago, I stood in a hospital room beside a little girl who taught me the meaning of courage. She asked me one simple question: can I sit here? That question changed my life. It reminded me that sometimes the smallest moments can open the biggest doors." The audience listened in stillness. "Tonight, as I look at all of you, I see what kindness can build when it refuses to fade. This foundation is not just about funding or buildings. It is about connection. It is about carrying forward the spirit of one child's compassion into every corner of the world." He paused, his gaze softening. Mia believed that love could outlast everything, and standing here tonight, I know she was right. The crowd applauded, and Anna's eyes shimmered as she joined him on stage to thank the staff. When the event ended, the hall slowly emptied until only a few people remained. Daniel and Anna walked out together into the cold night air. Snow had begun to fall again, blanketing the city in silver light. "You were perfect tonight," she said. She would have been proud. "She was the best teacher I ever had," Daniel replied. "And you are not so bad yourself." Anna laughed softly. "Flattery suits you." They walked through the quiet garden, their footsteps crunching against the snow. The fountain glowed faintly under the lamplight, and the engraved words shimmered through a thin sheet of ice. Daniel stopped and looked around. "Do you remember the first time we met here?" he asked. "You were wearing that same scarf, and you were grumpy," she said with a grin. "You did not talk much then." "I did not have much to say," he admitted. "Now, I cannot seem to stop talking." "Progress," Anna said. Mia would approve. "She always liked to see people grow," he said quietly. They stood there in the silence of falling snow, neither speaking for a long time. Finally, Daniel turned to her. "Anna, can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said. "Can I sit here?" he asked with a faint, playful smile. She laughed softly, understanding the weight of those words. "You already are," she said. They sat together on the cold bench, side by side, as the snow fell around them. The world felt vast and still, yet full of quiet promise. In that moment, surrounded by the legacy of a little girl who had changed them both, Daniel realized that healing was not something that ended. It was something that kept unfolding, one kind act at a time. And as the fountain's soft hum filled the night, he whispered a silent thank you to the girl who had taught him how to begin again. Spring returned with soft rain and new blossoms bursting through the soil of the Healing Hands garden. The trees stood greener than ever, and the fountain sang again under the open sky. Daniel Hart stood near the entrance gate, watching as volunteers planted a new row of tulips along the walkway. His life had become intertwined with this place, in ways he never expected. He was no longer just a benefactor or a businessman. He had become a mentor, a leader, and, in quiet ways, a man at peace. The Mia Harper Foundation had just reached its 3rd anniversary, and the number of children it had helped now counted in the thousands. Every week brought new letters from families across the country, each telling a story of recovery and hope. Daniel read every one of them. He kept some in his office, others in a small box at home, reminders of why he had changed his life. That morning, Nurse Anna found him standing under the blooming cherry tree near the center of the garden. She carried a folder in one hand and a smile that warmed even the cool morning air. "You are early," she said. "You could let your staff handle the volunteers once in a while." Daniel smiled faintly. "You know me. I like to see things with my own eyes. You do not trust anyone else to plant flowers correctly," she teased. "Maybe not," he said. "But this garden means something to me. Every petal, every stone, it reminds me of why I am still here." "And why is that?" she asked softly. "Because of her," he said simply. "And because of you." Anna looked down, her cheeks pink from the cold and perhaps from his words. "You give me too much credit." "No," Daniel said. "I have learned that credit belongs to the people who stay, not the ones who start." They walked together through the garden, their footsteps crunching softly on the gravel path. The air smelled of earth and fresh blossoms. "Do you ever think," Anna said after a moment, "that maybe this was always where you were meant to end up? Not in some skyscraper, not in meetings, but here?" Daniel chuckled quietly. "If you told me that 3 years ago, I would have laughed. I thought success was measured in numbers and deals. But now, I think it is measured in smiles." "I think she taught you that," Anna said. "She did," Daniel replied. "Mia taught me that love is not just an emotion, it is an action. It is the way you show up, even when it hurts." They reached the fountain, its water catching glints of sunlight through the moving clouds. Daniel crouched down and placed a small sunflower pin at the base of the stone, right next to the engraving that read, "Kindness is forever." "She would have loved this day," Anna said softly. "Yes," he replied. "She would have been out here painting the flowers herself." That afternoon, the hospital hosted the annual Day of Light, a celebration for children who had recovered or were continuing their treatments. The garden buzzed with families, doctors, and staff. Children chased bubbles, painted colorful pictures, and tied ribbons of hope to the trees. Daniel moved among them, shaking hands, laughing, listening. He saw reflections of Mia everywhere, in the courage of a boy who had lost his hair but never his smile, in the joy of a little girl drawing hearts on her mother's arm. Anna watched him from across the garden, noticing how natural he had become at this. Once, Daniel Hart had been a man haunted by grief and loss. Now he was the kind of man who lifted others with quiet strength. Later, when the event ended and the crowd thinned, Anna joined him near the gate. The sunset stretched across the horizon, turning the sky into a painting of gold and rose. "You look tired," she said. "You have been on your feet all day." "A good kind of tired," he said. "The kind that feels earned." "You have built something remarkable, Daniel." "We built it," he said. "You have been part of every step." "Maybe," she said. "But I think you would have found your way here eventually." "Maybe," he said. "But I would have been lost a lot longer without you." The air grew cooler as the evening deepened. The last of the ribbons fluttered from the trees, carrying wishes written in childish handwriting. Daniel picked one loose ribbon from the ground and read it aloud. I wish for everyone to be kind forever. He smiled, tucking it into his pocket. Seems like Mia's lesson stuck. Anna nodded. It always will. They walked together toward the fountain, now glowing softly in the fading light. Daniel paused and looked around, his heart full. Do you ever think about what comes next? He asked. Always, Anna said. But I stopped worrying about it. Whatever comes, we face it the same way we faced everything else together. Daniel looked at her, the weight of her words settling in his chest. Together, he repeated. The sound of the fountain filled the quiet that followed. The stars began to appear one by one in the darkening sky, their light gentle and endless. You know, Anna said softly, sometimes I think she sent us to each other. I think you are right, Daniel said, and I think she would want us to keep going. Then we will, Anna replied. They stood there for a long time, the garden wrapped in the glow of twilight, surrounded by laughter that lingered like music. And as the wind moved through the trees, Daniel heard the faintest whisper, soft, kind, and full of warmth like the echo of a child's voice saying, You did it. He closed his eyes, smiling, knowing that somewhere in the vastness of the sky, Mia was still watching, still guiding, still reminding him that love was never meant to stay still. It was meant to grow, to reach, to heal. Years later, the Healing Hands Garden had become more than a symbol. It was a sanctuary woven into the heart of the city, a living testament to how one act of kindness could ripple through generations. The sun rose softly over the horizon, painting the hospital grounds in hues of gold and rose. Children's laughter drifted through the morning air as families gathered for the annual anniversary of the foundation. The Mia Harper Foundation now reached beyond borders, supporting hospitals and art therapy centers in cities across the country. Daniel Hart walked through the garden slowly, his steps unhurried, his eyes filled with quiet pride. His hair had grayed slightly at the temples, but his expression carried the same warmth it always had. He passed the fountain where it had all begun, the same spot where a sick little girl had once asked if she could sit beside him. The fountain's water shimmered under the sunlight, and the words engraved on its base still read clearly, Kindness is forever. Daniel placed his hand on the cool stone and closed his eyes. You kept your promise, Mia, he whispered. You changed more lives than either of us could ever count. A soft voice spoke behind him. She would be proud of you, you know. He turned to see Anna standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee. Her smile had not changed over the years. It was still the same calm light that had carried him through loss and into hope. She handed him a cup, and together they stood watching the children run between the flower beds. It feels like she never really left, Daniel said. Every time I come here, I see her in the colors, in the laughter. Because she is here, Anna said. You made sure of that. We made sure, he corrected. They walked together toward the large oak tree at the center of the garden, where a new plaque had been placed. It read, In memory of Mia Harper, her kindness taught us how to live. Her courage taught us how to love. Around the plaque were dozens of paper cranes made by the children, each one painted with messages of hope, love, and gratitude. Daniel picked one up gently and smiled. Do you remember the first time she drew the garden? He asked. It looked almost exactly like this. I do, Anna said, except now it is real. The day carried on with warmth and laughter. Families shared stories, doctors spoke about how the foundation had saved lives, and volunteers read messages from children whose lives had been touched by the programs. Daniel listened quietly, humbled by what the years had built. He never forgot where it had started with a single question from a little girl whose heart was far greater than her years. As the afternoon faded into evening, the crowd began to leave, leaving behind the soft hum of wind and water. Daniel and Anna remained, standing beside the fountain as the first stars began to appear. The garden lights flickered on, bathing everything in a gentle golden glow. It is beautiful, Anna said softly. Every year, it feels more alive. It is because people believe in it, Daniel replied. They believe in her message. That is what keeps it alive. He paused, his gaze lifting toward the sky. You know, I used to think that healing meant forgetting the pain, but now I know it means carrying it differently, turning it into something that helps others stand. That is what you did, Anna said. You turned your loss into love. Daniel smiled faintly. We both did. A moment of silence passed between them before Anna reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The board wanted me to give you this, she said. A token for the 10th anniversary. He opened the box carefully. Inside was a golden key, engraved with the words, "The Heart of Healing." "They are dedicating the new children's center in your name," Anna said. The Daniel Hart wing. He looked at the key for a long moment, emotion catching in his throat. "That was not necessary," he said softly. "Maybe not," she replied, "but it is right." He closed the box gently and smiled. "Then we will make sure it keeps opening doors." As the evening deepened, they walked once more through the garden, the air cool and sweet. Fireflies began to flicker between the flowers, tiny lights moving like stars come down to earth. Daniel stopped by the bench, the same one he and Mia had once shared. He sat down slowly and motioned for Anna to join him. "Do you ever wonder what she would say if she could see all this?" he asked. Anna smiled, her eyes glistening. "I think she would say, 'See? I told you kindness could change the world.'" Daniel chuckled softly, his gaze lifting to the sky. She would. The night settled around them, calm and full of memory. For a while, neither spoke, they simply sat in the peace they had built, listening to the sound of the fountain and the distant hum of the city beyond. Then Daniel said quietly, "You know, I used to think she saved me that day. But now I realize she saved us all." Anna reached out, resting her hand over his. "And now it is our turn to keep saving others." The stars shone brighter as they sat there together, two souls bound by the same promise, a promise born from the courage of one small girl whose heart had outlived her years. The wind moved gently through the flowers, carrying the faint scent of sunflowers and rain. Daniel leaned back, closing his eyes, and whispered, "Thank you, Mia, for teaching me that love never ends, it only grows." And as the night deepened, the garden glowed softly under the starlight, alive with the unending echo of her laughter, the promise of her kindness, and the truth that some stories never truly end. They live on in every heart they touch.